Okay, I think most people have gotten around the table. So we're going to do some work. I heard some of you as you were talking saying, this is what I hope I'm going to get from these 3 days, and going on into the quarterlies, because we will be meeting at every quarterly as well for about an hour. So which is your favorite color, pink or orange? Pink. Okay, so you're going to take on your pink Post-its. We're going to, each question is going to be on a single Post-it, okay? So what questions about coaching cycles do you hope will be addressed either these 3 days or as we move into the quarterlies? And what new knowledge about coaching do you hope to gain? Or whichever one you can have like 3 or 4 Post-its. We're going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to write down all the questions that you think, I'm coming here and I'm hoping I'm going to get some more information about this, or some more ideas from my colleagues about how to actually put coaching cycles into operation. So just take a few minutes to decide to write on the pink Post-its your questions or your hopes. Okay, before we ask you to post them around the room, what we'd like you to do is take a few minutes, take whoever is closest, it doesn't matter who starts, somebody at the table starts. I am out of ideas about who could start today. I was thinking of earrings, but you know, not everybody has earrings today. Even some... the most alert person in your room, at your table can start. But anyhow, somebody can start. Just want you to share one of your questions. Make sure everybody gets a chance to share their question. Maybe if it needs any explanation, go ahead. And if you have time before we start, you can always go around for a second round of sharing your questions with, just to see, do we have common questions? Do we have unique questions? You know, oh, that's something I haven't thought of. And if one of your friends says, oh, yeah, I have that question too, just make a tally mark on your question, and then we'll know that's more than one person that's interested in the same thing. So go ahead and just take a little bit of time to share your questions around the table. So as I'm going around, I'm hearing some... Are we ready to come back? So now I want the person at the table who most wants to get up and walk. Do I have a volunteer at every table who really wants to get up and walk? Would you collect all of the Post-its and go post them on a question board closest to you? Or if you want a lot of exercise, on a question board farthest from you. Okay. So Asha and Suzie and Melissa are just going to kind of give us a summary of the status of the room a little bit, so that you can hear from the front part of the room, the back part of the room, and then we'll get a couple of ideas from Melissa as well from our online people. So Asha?
So one of the themes we saw emerging is around timelines for coaching cycles. How much time do we spend one-on-one with a teacher over the course of 6 weeks? And how much time for goal setting or for, implementation. How much time are we spending one-on-one with those teachers, and how do we know what will bring the impact in those time periods? Another thing we saw was around data collection. We heard a few questions about are there other ways to collect data beyond pre and post assessments at the beginning of your coaching cycle and at the end of the coaching cycle? So what might be some other ways to collect data, or what other types of data would we collect along the way?
Well, I know the poster back here also had those same themes as well, but a couple others that weren't said. These questions right here all around the theme of how do you tell people about coaching cycles? How do you launch it? How do you explain what it is, what it isn't? So I'd say that really encompasses quite a few of these over here. Into the stamina of it. What happens if it stalls out after so much time too? So I think, again, launching the coaching cycles. Again, we had one on data over here. And then there was also a lot of questions around organization, also about resources. We have a lot of resources. How do we use those most effectively and efficiently? And how do you organize all of that information that you get from coaching cycles, from going into the classrooms and keeping track of the pre and the post? What's the best way to do that organization-wise? And I'll pass it to Melissa.
So some of the things that you mentioned as well, especially organization and thinking about the idea of using what language do we use as far as consistent language with teachers, but especially here mentioning that how do we work with principals so they not only value coaching but also communicate to the teachers how a coaching cycle should look and sound within the classrooms, and especially encouraging those that might be reluctant to sign up with the support of the principal.
Over here online, some questions very similar to what's already been shared. Questions around reluctant teachers to participate in coaching cycles. Clarification on 60% of the time spent for teachers. What does that look like, and how would data collection look like for that? A lot of organizational questions, and there was one more down here. I was gonna. I think I captured. Yep, everything else has been said.
So I think that we're going to start with one of Susie's questions right now about how do you launch it? What kind of language do you use with teachers about coaching cycles? So if you didn't get a handout, because those of you in the back are not going to be able to see the screen very well, we're going to talk first about commitments and communication. And I think that this is a document from the reading teacher, I think, article that you probably have access to, but we'll pass it out tomorrow when we do some work on it. It talks about the commitments and communication that you talk with the teacher about. And I just want to make sure that this is not for coaching cycles. This is like something that whenever you start either the year or you start working with a new teacher, you want to really sit down with that teacher and say, okay, for our work together to be really, really productive, these are some things that we have found are really helpful. So we're both making a commitment to, so the teacher is going to make a commitment, the coach says, I'm going to be at the top. I'm going to be responsive to your ideas. I'm going to provide research-supported information when it's needed. I'm going to follow through on my activities. And from here down, really the teacher and the coach commitments are the same. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to honor agreed upon times. I'm going to avoid rescheduling, which means telling your principal at times, I'm going to be in that classroom. I can't go to that meeting that you can't go to either, you know. How often does that happen? And then it's really staying focused and engaged our whole time together. It's so hard when you're in a classroom sometimes and somebody walks in and there's a message on the intercom or whatever. So you just really have to be committed to be focused. So those are the commitments at the top and the bottom. And notice that most of the commitments are very similar. You're going to do this and I'm going to do the same thing. We're in this together. And then over here is the kind of communication that the coach is going to do. We have found that it's effective when I do this. And I think the first one is so important that I'm not here to be your yearly evaluator. I'm here to work with you in order to promote student learning. And that sometimes when I'm listening to you, I want to make sure that I've heard what you're saying. Like somebody asked a question over here. I just missed several of the words, and I said, I just need to hear that again. So when you paraphrase and ask questions, sometimes it's just for clarification. I'm going to meet your needs. Sometimes I'm going to be a sounding board. I'm going to listen to you because you have lots of great ideas, and you just want to let me know what your ideas are. Sometimes we're going to think together. And sometimes if need be, I could provide some suggestions on a tricky area for you. I'm always going to support your decision-making by asking reflective questions, and we worked on that quite a bit this morning. And, of course, we're going to focus mainly on evidence and student learning. And the teacher, on the other hand, they need to know what their role is. You know, when we're working together, it's not just what I'm going to do as a coach, but really, when we're sitting down and discussing, we just want to have a conversation, just like if you were discussing educational things with your first grade colleague or your second grade colleague. And to honestly identify your needs and we should add this, identify when the coach isn't meeting those needs. Like, I really haven't gotten what I need yet. You know, this is really what I need more information about, or what we need to be doing together. And that you're reflective. We want the teachers to be reflective, and the coaches, of course, too. And just like the coach, we're going to focus mainly on evidence and student learning. So this is like what we call the third point document. When you're starting to work with teachers, really it's nice to have that right in front of you. And sometimes when you're starting maybe one of your really in-depth conversations, you might want to say, okay, we're going to goal set. And I really need for you to really identify what your needs are in terms of the goals for the students, because you know your students a lot better than I know your students. And so you know what their needs are and what it would mean to achieve a goal, or to set a goal that the students need to achieve. So I think that it's always handy to have this. But this doesn't really say anything about coaching cycles. So what we would like you to do at your table is to think about that teacher who who you say, you know, we could do a coaching cycle about small group reading lessons based on need. Or maybe you this is the first time you're doing writing instruction according to a new curricular resource. We're going to do a coaching cycle about that first unit of that curricular resource and see how it works with the students. But the teacher says to you, that sounds great, but what is a coaching cycle? What do you mean when you say coaching cycle? So I'm not suggesting that you have to have a fancy table. And this is Aaron Brown's creation, really, is this table that we refined for the book. But you don't have to have something as fancy as this. But what would a diagram, what would a list of things be, what would whatever you want, a table, what third point piece could you create that would describe the elements of a coaching cycle and the commitments related to that coaching cycle. We're going to start that today. We can always go back and refine, but what we'd like you to do as a table is to take some time to brainstorm what that might look like, and then to put it onto chart paper that we give you, so that we'll put them around the room, and in the morning we'll do a gallery walk of them, just so that you get an idea, a starting idea of what are your starting thoughts. And the nice thing is you've got tables where people don't have much experience. They might have read a lot about it, so they have knowledge but not experience. And then you've got people at some of these tables who have done coaching cycles for several years. So, share your knowledge and realize that just like teachers, you've got different levels of knowledge and experience. And so start talking, and we'll pass around chart paper for you to put your ideas on. I have 25 to 3, so we're going to give you a good 15, 20 minutes to work on that. We'll see where you are. Now that you've had a lot of brainstorming time, it might be time to start thinking about your chart. And once again, it's to answer the question of a teacher is, so what do you mean by a coaching cycle? So whatever you want to put on there, it could be a diagram, time, what are we going to do, what is my responsibility, what are your responsibilities. However, can you make it into a fancy little document that would be appealing to a teacher? Are you just right now at the listing stage and you're going to think about putting it into a fancy document later, a combination? Okay? Does that answer people's questions about what goes on the paper? It's really whatever you want to go on the paper that you think would be useful for teachers when they ask, what is a coaching cycle? So we're just going to have a couple of people share today. And this looks like a good one to share. But the person who writes doesn't have to share. Somebody else could share.
I don't mind sharing, but
Oh.
I feel like you'd be a good sharer. You have a lot of, I can share. Now that I have a visual. Charisma. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of investment in the color scheme. I do.
All right. So we're going to have you share, and we're going to have this group share. Okay. If you are a person that is kind of finishing up your chart, that's fine. Go ahead and you can finish. But if you are done with your chart, we're just going to have a couple of people share their charts. And then, as I said, tomorrow we'll have a gallery walk so you can see everybody's. Lots of really great ideas I see around. I heard lots of good conversations. So will you start? I'm sorry. I should know your name, and I don't. Heather.
Okay, so at our table, we just kind of talked about having some type of infograph. So we just talked about having some type of infograph to provide to teachers, just to show many details of what the coaching cycle actually is going to look like. But then we also had a conversation about the commitment component of it, and how do we also have the administration be a part of that commitment. So we talked about, like, at the component of, observation and feedback, like, here's the teacher's role, here's the coach's role, but then also how can administration also support us in that? And then going into the co-planning, same thing. So we just go through, here's what the teacher is going to do, here's what the coach is going to do, but then just adding in that administration so that we know that administrators are also supporting our work as coaches and teachers.
So combination of pieces. Where's the group that was out here? I think you need to change outfits every day.
Okay. Okay, so this is our visual. We are a new coaching team, like 2 years, 3. So to see a visual of the teacher and coach together, and we put collaboration in the center. And then kind of what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, and then throughout our discussion, we talked about remembering, we left this blank, and remembering who our why is, and those are our kids and students. So in everything that we do, it's student-centered and focused. So I'll briefly touch on what it might look like, working together, planning, modeling, a ninja presence. I'll explain more. Okay, ninja presence of, I don't know, well, when you think of the word observe, it can be harsh for teachers. So being kind of like that ninja in the back of and observing what's happening with students and teachers. Organized chaos, messy, flexible, fluid. Sounds like having conversation, communication, reflections, ahas, celebrations. Feels empowering. And this also just is not for the teacher, but for the coach as well, because we came up with like vulnerable and anxious feeling and being present, non-judgmental, risk-taking, both by coach and teacher. So there's ours.
And I think it's certainly okay to talk about, you know, during this time, we're both going to have times when we're like, I don't know, let's pick something and try it. You know, these both will work. I don't know. So I think that, you know, it's normal to have some situations where you just don't know and you're a little anxious and maybe a little, I don't like the word stress so much, but just, you know, have that normal questioning. So I think there were lots of good things here. And before we end, I just would like you to talk about this whole idea of testimonials and how once you get started, other people will ask for similar things. And you had such a great example, if you would share.
I don't know where to look. People online, hi Sue. We were just talking about how we had some in the district that I worked in. We had some people do, in particular, one coach do as a coaching conversation live in front of their staff with someone that they had been working with and felt really comfortable with, and how powerful it was, and how many people then signed up afterwards to be a part of that conversation. And it was completely authentic what they did. And I don't think they completed it and finished it, but they saw what it was, and so it didn't seem as scary. So just a way to, so teachers understand what it is we're doing.
And so I was thinking that if you had, I mean, maybe you don't have a staff meeting to do that with, but if you could videotape yourself with somebody that you knew well, and as part of introducing the coaching cycle to a teacher, play that little video so that they can see these are just conversations. Sometimes we use the term conferencing, and it seems to be a huge thing. They're conversations, you know, conversations about learning and student learning. So we will put all of these up so that we can do a little gallery walk in the morning, and so that you can see what, or not tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, so you can see what people have done, because I heard some great ideas, and I just didn't get to see the finished chart yet. Oh, and somebody's phone is on the floor. Thank you. Okay. Very nice. Oh, can I ask you guys to pass these out? So what you're going to get now is a beginning set of resources. These are resources that we know are available to you. I think the top two, the first one is the book. Is there anybody here who doesn't have the book, More Random, No More Random Acts of Coaching? Okay, so what I would like you to do is on a piece of paper. Where am I? Oh, okay. Even a better idea. Write your name and your address, your mailing address, and what you need, that you need no more random acts of literacy coaching. And we'll have Liberty order them for you and get them to you. So if you need them, put them on a sticky note and just put the sticky note, right next to questions up here. So the other thing on this sheet are resources that we have, different presentations that we have talked about coaching cycles. Most of you have gone to a kickoff. It was your first time maybe thinking about coaching, and the last thing on your mind was a coaching cycle because you hadn't met a teacher yet. And so it's like, and in the kickoff we say, don't do any coaching cycles in your first half a year because you're not ready for it. You need to develop those relationships, right? So that wasn't a big deal for you. But on these other quarterlies and advanced institutes, we have talked about coaching cycles in various ways. And if you have the time and want to re-look at some of those, they're all at literacyessentials.org under your coaching. When you log in as a coach, you can go to the quarterly meetings, go to the agenda, and the recordings are right there. But what we really what we know is that many of you are using other resources as well. And so, for example, many of you are doing student-centered coaching and using the Diane Sweeney book. If you are, put it on a Post-it. And if you could put each resource on a different Post-it, great. If there's an article that you really read and that you use a lot when you're talking about coaching cycles with teachers or administrators, add that. And then can you put next to it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars, or 1 through 5 number. 1 meaning it wasn't very helpful, I'm not really recommending this, to 5, this is a great resource. So that what we will do is, as facilitators, we'll look at the 4s and 5s especially, and run them probably through our resource examination tool that we talked about last year, and just kind of make a set of resources for you. It won't be done before October, but it won't be done in these 3 days, but we'll have it for you hopefully by October. So a list of resources that other people have found really helpful when thinking about coaching. Now, you may not have the exact thing that you want to write down here. So if you don't know it, maybe in the next couple of days you could look it up on the in your spare time. I wouldn't say do it in the shower. Lots of times I say I do my best thinking in the shower, but finding a resource, probably not. And you can always add it to a sticky note later on Wednesday or Thursday. So just take a couple of minutes to think about those. And if you have some, just put the sticky notes up here. Anything. It could be as simple as a handout you got at a presentation that you think they really captured everything that we need to know. And about any elements of the coaching cycle. And I think we're putting up a couple of charts so you can go and put your Post-it there. So just take a... Okay, and we're letting people take their time to do that, but the last thing we want to do today, and that we'll spend the last 15 minutes or so doing every day, is to reflect on the day. So you can do it in your notebook, you can do it on a sheet of paper, you can write it in your phone, whatever you want, wherever you want to keep it. We want you to think about this in terms of the 5 pursuits. How did today's sessions shape your identity? You You don't have to address all 5 of these. Whatever reflections you have, think about how they fit into these pursuits. What skills were enhanced today? Not just this session, but all day long. How did today's session develop your intellect? How can your experience today be used to impact the system structures and those served in education, that criticality? How are you going to move what you learned today out? And how did today's session add joy to your professional thinking? So any of those or anything else you want to write as your reflection. And when you're done with your reflection, you just clean up your area a little bit and feel free to go and saunter around Traverse City. And we will see you in the morning at 8:30.